So late last year, a funny thing happened. Basically, I had been attending trans group as an ally for a couple of years, and it was an interesting time because I was the ally during that period, the one that showed up. Um, and Sometime late last year, I had a whole bunch of really stressful things happen to me. Some of them were really, really good things, but they came sandwiched in between crises, and that kind of this kind of graph does not really get you very stable emotions. You're going to be looking inside yourself a lot more than is normal. And when I looked inside myself, I saw something that, in retrospect, I had been ignoring it for a very long time. Not on a day-to-day basis. This wasn't something where I felt like I was hiding myself all the time. There's a lot I liked about being a guy, especially when I was a little kid. But there were certain things that just never quite worked right. There were certain things that would have made more sense the other way. There are certain things that when I look back on it, it's like, oh, this is the same story every other trans woman tells about that kind of thing. And it made me stare in the face the fact that I was holding myself back from being one of y'all because on some level I didn't feel like I was good enough at the time.
Relatable. So
I looked at trans people and I saw something so amazing I couldn't possibly fit into it. But I had to go tell everyone else how great they were. It was really important. And the thing is, there's I could tell the same story for like 3 hours. There's way more to it than I've told you, and I've told you this like 100 times probably. But to keep it very short, I used to know a trans person online quite some time ago, before I figured my own shit out, that we kind of developed this funny little theory that was mostly a joke, but there was also kind of something to it, we felt. We workshopped it, developed it a little bit. Basically, we figured out that there's actually a gender binary in our culture. It's real. It works for almost everyone. The thing is, it's not masculinity versus femininity. It's would you or would you not wear a cute bow? You look at any cartoon character, Pac-Man, Birdo, etc. You stick a bow on it. Yep, we know what that is now. Pac-Man especially. This is a yellow pie that eats dots. We put a bow on it. That is a fundamentally different character now. And I have to say, a lot of people have a lot of difficulty. I went out and got manned in like a couple of weeks after I first started dressing, and I haven't done a damn thing. Apparently this thing is an exploit. Magical gender change bow real. Who knew? This is not the magical gender change bow. I needed that to look a lot more like the bow emoji. It was supposed to be a symbol. This is a special one I made for this month because, hey, Trans Day of Visibility is this month. So why not be very visible, wear a special bow all month that has our colors on it, so I have as many excuses to explain it as possible. 0 people have asked me about the bow. Whatever. But the thing is, we had this in-joke about the bow discourse. And so when I figured out who I was, this came at a stressful time because well, for reasons I won't get into, I felt like I needed to come back to trans group. And doing that felt like it would require kind of an announcement. And so I thought at first I was just going to make this bow, and the bow was going to be pretty much it, because I felt like I couldn't do very much about this from where I was. I felt like it wasn't ever going to sell. I wasn't ever going to make it, just like everyone else seems to think at some point. And I actually at one point coined the term cisjacent to describe myself, because I figured I was just the least NB dude there ever was. So I was just going to show up totally in boy mode with a ridiculous hair bow, basically as a big shit post. But the thing is, I went to 5 different stores looking for a hair bow, and they were all fucking bullshit. And so I went to Joanne, and I bought myself some ribbon. And then the ribbon, it turned out, was sheer, which I did not want, so I had to go back and buy more ribbon. And then I had to spend like 3 days, because this was my first real serious craft project and I had no idea what I was doing. I spent 3 days sewing together the solid red ribbon and the sheer red ribbon that had the sparkles on it, because it needed to have sparkles, because it's a magical gender change bow. It's got to sparkle. And so I made this. This is my first bow. It's not my everyday carry. It's kind of small and wonky. Didn't really quite do it right. It's got this annoying old-fashioned type of clasp on it that makes it really irritating to get in your hair, and then even more irritating to get back out. So I have made more improved ones that I actually wear every day. But this one is important to keep because it is the first one I made. And after making it, I looked at it on my table, and I realized that this wasn't a joke. I realized that this was a piece of my soul that almost died, and I couldn't ignore her anymore. She was sitting on my desk, and she was real, and I couldn't ignore her. I had been doing that for so long. So many times I had something that made me wonder, and I just stuffed it back in a locker every time. Didn't think about it again for years. It was unthinkable. You can't, like, I've disappointed my dad so many ways already. Again, just by being myself. I could always tell that I was supposed to be straight. Someday you gotta wake up and say, fuck you, Dad.
You know, being transgender and also being disabled. How has that impacted you?
I don't know. Ask half the trans people you've ever met. I mean, it's interesting because there's actually one really big advantage it gives you, which is that if you're disabled, then the state will pay for your medical care and you actually get it occasionally. That's not necessarily a common experience in America. And since we need a lot of that for various reasons, it's kind of important. I will say that is the sort of question that, aside from the thing I just said, and you already know this, it's a sort of meaningless question because it depends entirely on what disability you're talking about. Every single problem you could possibly have that keeps you out of the workforce does something completely different to your life. I think that disabled people, more than any other kind, really teach us the importance and the method of solidarity, because everyone can look at a disabled person, and if they have any sense in their head, they think, there but for the grace of God go I. And that means that you have to be willing to hold those people up, because you need to be able to expect that somebody's going to hold you up if you fall. So, to me, being disabled was one of the first things that radicalized me towards left politics. Before that, I was a lot closer to the stupid-ass kind of vaguely libertarian-flavored Republican that my father had indoctrinated me into being. But realizing that something is wrong with the culture of work and the fact that we require it to be able to live, it just, we shouldn't be doing this to people. It doesn't make any sense. And that is something that, boy, those thoughts feel so familiar when you have them again years later for a completely different reason. I think this is not truly the case. This is obviously hyperbole, but there is a sense in which every trans person is disabled in our culture. All of us have some important aspect of our lives that we cannot reach without some kind of intervention. And that's very hard for us to feel like you need a wheelchair ramp to just be the type of person you want to be. So I would say that being disabled gave me a lot of insights that made it easier to understand this thing and how it fits in our culture and how it should fit in our culture better.